All right, we got a big content drop with Tools of War for Warhammer 40k Darktide. Now, in my typical fashion of upfronting the knowledge in this video, I don't have a real good, concise breakdown of everything. Some of the things I can tell you up front are that we do get a lot of UI changes to help us know when any of our buffs are active, be they from perks, be they from feats, be they from actual things on your weapon, whatever it is. So we actually have UI context tips for when those go live. Love that. We're also going to have UI notifications to let us know, if I just scroll down right here, if we actually already have a specific blessing. So those two things are pretty huge. We've had a lot of tweaks to Psyker. Some of them, it was a lot of big tweaks that actually didn't do a lot. So it's a lot of motion, it's a lot of action, a lot of motion. It's kind of weird. So the result is that the Psyker got a slight buff. We got a bunch of brand new weapons. You can see right here, we got two new force swords, 2 new billy clubs, a power sword, a thunder hammer, 2 new twin-linked heavy stubbers, and 2 new combat shotguns coming to the game, as well as a slew of balance changes to a lot of existing weapons. A big thing too is a slight nerf to the shotgunners. They're less capable of sniping you from 1,000,000 yards away, which is always a good thing. Also, the bulwark shields are a little bit less, I don't know, like they've been so janky in the past, right? Like you attack them with an eviscerator and you hit their open chest, but actually it went through their open chest and hit their shield. So a lot of stuff has been tweaked and fixed with that kind of stuff, but that is the gist of these patch notes. There are some new conditions that are coming to the game, but they're more like a roulette of existing conditions, plus a new one called Shock Troop Gauntlet, which is basically the same thing as Hunting Grounds, but with specials. That's basically the best way to put it. So that is the patch notes in a quick, clear, little Spark Notes bite-sized version. If that's all you wanted to know, please feel free to shut the video down if you so wish. But before you do, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, all that fun action. But also, check me out on Twitch under the name Italian Spartacus. You can find a link in the description as well as the pinned comment. I am currently live recording this, so it's a cool thing to check me out on Twitch. But let's dive into the Tools of War patch notes for those that want to get into the nitty and the gritty. So going into the patch notes here, we got new features, blessing details. So now we get this little magnifying glass letting us know, yo, you got that blessing already. Way nicer, way nicer. This way I just kind of know what's going on. It's kind of really unfortunate because, or prior to this, because you had to always check the shrine, and now it's just boom, you're good. So into some new weapon marks, we get a Blaze Force Sword here that is good for single target damage with precision stabs. I won't think I'll ever really, I mean, cool. I guess it's nice to have 2 of the same style of weapons so I can pick and choose. But I mean, honestly, I don't think this was a Force Sword that we actually needed. The Elise Force Sword, on the other hand, is pretty cool with a focus on horde management. When charged with warp energy, it cuts through groups of enemies with increased power. Swordsman 1 Messier, who's in our chat right now because we're streaming this live, he was saying that it seems really fun, but the charge only works for 1 enemy. So when you hit 1 enemy, it stops the charge, but it's basically like a watered down power sword is essentially how he named it. We got the Brunts Pride Bully Club, a more basic Vanguard and Relentless moveset that can be mixed up with slaps and punches. Another Billy Club that sends opponents flying with tanky uppercut swings or strike them down with lethal strike down combos. It seems very fun, actually. I do like that. Munitorum Power Sword, a power sword with a more varied moveset. Okay, I mean, this Munitorum is the same one we had, it's just a different mark of the Munitorum. So, love to see how that works. The Iron Ham, the Rum Ham, the Iron Helm Mark IV Thunderhammer. A Thunderhammer slightly more capable of dealing with several enemies. It can cleave through multiple light enemies before dealing with the obliterating blow while activated. Well, that's the first thing I'm going to be testing in my stream today. 2 different heavy stubbers, one that's got a heavier, harder hitting, slower fire rate, and one that is lighter with a faster fire rate, increased mobility, and a shorter range. 2 different shotguns, a shotgun that is accurate and fast firing long range combat shotgun with a boost to weak spot damage. It can also be loaded with a powerful hard hitting single shot slug round. Oh, so a cool different special. This next one, I haven't read these actual descriptions yet. A powerful and aggressive combat shotgun with a widespread and high damage. It can also be loaded with an incendiary round that sets enemies ablaze. So it's like, did they hear everyone's gripes these whole times, and they were like, man, just just wait. You know, like we got it coming. I kind of wish that an announcement had just come from them. Like, hey, you know, we see a lot of the things that you guys have been talking about, and we can't tell you all the stuff that's coming because it's just not how game companies work. But we can tell you that a lot of the stuff that you have issues with will be solved in guns and weapons to come. I think if I had heard that, I'd have been less pissed off about how the Force Sword reacts or how terrible the Thunderhammer is. And this is not going to change the Thunderhammer. And how the combat shotgun responds. I think had they just kind of told me outright, like, yeah, we actually have a lot of different marks of guns and weapons coming that are going to really mix up how these specials work and what their actual things are going to be in combat. I think had I known that, I'd been less critical, I would say. But for conditions, shortly after the deployment of the Tools of War, a new mixture of conditions will be seen for the next month as we try out a variety of combinations together. Each week we'll see a different combination. On the weekend, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, we'll also see their own mixture. We'll be regularly reading on feedback on these conditions and their combinations, so please let us know what you think. So the two new ones here is Shock Troop Gauntlets. Specialist spawns are doubled and spawn in waves, and Ventilation Purge with snipers. Fog covers the mission, and snipers will guard random locations of the missions. I mean, that one seems cool because I think it's kind of like, oh, cool, they're actually guarding this location. The Shock Troop one, it's kind of the same thing as the dogs, just like I said with specials. So that is what it is. I feel like you could do a lot more crazy stuff, right? Like, okay, all specials on the map are just berserkers, ragers, right? Like, oh shit, that's going to be kind of wild. Or all specials on the map are all one thing or another. Like something that's a little more polarizing that just is really going to make you go, I don't know if I want to do this. This is going to really be hard. Like I really got to focus doing it versus some of the things that might be a little bit different. We'll see how these two go. So dev note, the enemies that appear in darkness ventilation purge conditions have been tweaked to use shorter distance requirements for line of sight checks. So enemies are more affected by the lack of visibility. So that's nice. So darkness with hunting grounds covers a level, darkness with high intensity, darkness with low intensity, ventilation purge. So you can see there's all nice mixes and combinations, a roulette of sorts of combinations of conditions soon to hit us, which I'm really, really liking that. Armory Exchange has been relocated, as we now know. It is now next to the Shrine of the Omnissiah. So you don't have to go to Grendel, which is a hilarious euphemism for a ball sack, and then go back to the Shrine of the Omnissiah. It's now just simply right there next to it, so you can just take care of everything in one fell swoop. For some updated features, the AMD FSR has been updated to version 2.2 with improvements across the board, particularly with ghosting. You can read more about FSR 2.2 on the AMD blog. Add a new RTX global illumination setting. I wouldn't touch this. And if you are having problems with your graphic settings, don't even touch it. If you've gotten the game to operate in a way that you are liking, don't touch anything. until one of these says something like vastly optimized X, Y, and Z, this setting is now more improved or anything like that, don't touch what you got. Just update your drivers, make sure that everything is clean and running smoothly on your computers, because a lot of that stuff is usually linked to some crap on the back end. Clean wipe your drivers and reinstall them brand new and fresh. Every time you update your AMD drivers or your NVIDIA drivers, you have an option to do a clean install. If you haven't done that after, if you've never done that, do that. And you should do about once a year. That way, you make sure that there's no kind of bullshit in your NVIDIA folders that's kind of hampering you or whatever it is. Usually they're pretty good about it nowadays, but that used to be kind of the staple of how you approached driver updates. For the Psychers, quelling of the Peril's Overhaul, lower quell times for passive quelling and lower quell times for active quelling. Two really nice things. Shift current Peril scale to not scale quell times as aggressively. Previously, quelling picked up speed over time, making high Peril quelling more effective than low Peril quelling. This curve is now much more linear. Interesting. I got to see how that plays out. Increased passive quell speed on non-force weapons. I get a 25% reduction. Okay, so using a force weapon actually makes it so that you have a faster passive quell, which I think is pretty nice. I think it's a pretty cool little ditty there. Force weapon passive quelling baseline is 12.5 seconds, and non-force lands at 9.5 seconds, was previously around 24 seconds. Oh! I'm dumb. So not using a force weapon passively quells faster. Okay. I guess I thought that if you're using a force weapon, they're kind of channeling their like the warp a little bit better through the usage of the force weapon. But I guess with the force weapon, you might be able to kind of game the system in some way, shape, or form. But I guess the fact that non-force lands at 9.5 seconds, that took the wind out of my sails, man. You see how excited I was for that? Clean up and simplify curves, ramping and min-timer time fractions, making coiling a more straightforward and deterministic experience. Regardless of current peril amount. Good lord, my mouth won't work today. Tweak the pox hounds so they are easier to stagger with melee weapons when they are disabling a player, which I do really like. Added variations to the pox burster sounds. This is a good one right here. These two actually are pretty nice. Let's get those three. Tweaks the Dreg shotgunner so that they will follow players when engaged in melee combat to make them easier to lock in melee. Love that. Added more damage fall off to the shotgunner shots from 15 meters to 8 meters. You're basically almost cutting that in half. It is a great change because you're not going to get sniped with those guys anymore. 15 meters is actually pretty far in this game. 15 meters is the difference between short and long for a lot of guns and their damage profiles. And it's a pretty long distance. I know it seems not that long when you're taking a look at this, but 15 meters, that's why you're getting like shotgun when those guys, or that's why you're getting sniped by those guys when they come out of the room. Reduce shotgunners and assaulters' toughness damage, normalize some aim duration, and shoot cooldown values across all difficulties. So I do like that quite a bit. Increased frequency of hounds and hunting grounds. Don't know if I like that because I hate hounds. Fix the bulwark stationary melee attacks enable disable shield blocking to match the animation. And fix so bulwark heavy staggers disable shield blocking to match the, thank God. Change the bulwark shield push attack to not deal damage, and fix bulwark stagger animation during durations to match the animation better. So maybe what we were seeing was a desync between the server and the client side. So what I would see as a staggered animation was actually not represented on the server side, and probably was what would result in me hitting the shield when I didn't intend to. So I do like these changes here. I'd love to see how they kind of make themselves known. Increased explosive barrel damage, especially versus monstrosity. Increased fire barrel damage. Removed high stagger from fire barrel explosion. So a lot of barrels have been nerfed, guys, is what I'm trying to say here. Increased the number of specials able to spawn and coordinated strikes on heresy and damnation difficulty. 4 to 5 for heresy, 5 to 6 for damnation. So that's a little bit of a superficial increase to the difficulty as a whole. Increased how many of the same specialists can spawn on heresy and damnation difficulties as well. And tune down the amount of dregs that spawn as roamers. Reduce the roamer aggro range. Change so poxburster explosions can damage barrels. Okay, interesting. Weapons. Added a new wider crosshair for the Lawbringer combat shotgun when a weapon special shotgun shell is loaded. Okay. And then tweaked the coil glow of plasma guns not to follow overheat strictly for less sudden shifts in the glow intensity when, okay, yeah, it's definitely something I needed, right? So the buff and debuff icons, we now see this. It corresponds to the blessing you have active, and if it has any kind of stacks, you can now see that, and I absolutely love it. So as they've noted here, if something's a passive, it's not on here because it's just a redundancy, and I'm totally cool with it. And negative buffs appear up there as well in a red frame though. So, and some have new icons. So nice to see that. Damage over time effects like bleeding, fire, or soul blaze should now give red hit markers on the crosshair when such an effect kills an enemy. You know, I think I'd rather just see, I think I'd like to see if there was some sort of visual HUD indicator of a bleed, fire, or soul blaze. Well, I guess fire and soul blaze hitting your target is pretty self-explanatory. Bleeding's a little hard to see, but if like the entire crosshair quickly like flashed red, rather than the little tiny blips in the center, like something that just lets me know, hey, you know, you've applied a damage over time effect. That way, I know, okay, I'm using my bleed dagger, and I want to know if I'm actually applying bleed. Sure, you see the spurts coming out of them, but they're a little bit hard to see in the tumult of battle. Lighting someone on fire, a little more self-explanatory, but I think kind of having something like that would be pretty nice. A lot of these are showing that it has buff icons when active. That's all fine. Not going to go through that. Balance changes here. So all these cool buffs were made to the Thunderhammer, but none of them matter because the Thunderhammer still is, from a design perspective, flawed. Yes, you can cancel the animation of charging and attacking with the Thunderhammer, but I shouldn't have to do that. You can argue that that's a skill thing, right? If you charge it and then cancel it, that's part of the skill of the Thunderhammer. I say that that's part of the lack of proper design of the Thunderhammer. Reducing that charge and making it so that, reducing the recycle, the recoil after a charge is what makes the Thunderhammer viable. If I'm playing this on Damnation and I miss and hit like, or something like paths its way in front of me and a Groaner gets right in front right before I'm going to hit a Crusher, okay, well, there goes my entire blow. These nice improvements, I mean, Maniac and Infected now get almost a 50 and a 25% damage increase. Carapace gets a double in damage here. Same thing here as well for its target, its light attack first target, and bumped Flak, Maniac, and Infected armor. That's all great, but I still think that the problem with the Thunderhammer, and the problem the Thunderhammer will never be able to truly shine in Damnation, is that recoil locks you into a very punishing style of play. And I think what was that? Just booted up. Oh, that was my that was my calendar. I just think the animation canceling is just not the way that you play a game out, in my honest opinion. You might disagree. That's totally fine. That's your prerogative as a gamer and how you're playing your game. But I think that if they had increased all these values to 1,000%, it does 1,000,000 damage to any one enemy. It still does that damage to one enemy. And if I can't reliably use it in a Damnation scenario, it's just not worth it to me. Still one of my favorite weapons, though. Blaze Force Sword. Increased light force sword damage and heavy force sword damage quite a bit. Up to 40 to 80 to 60 to 20. And stab attack is now 80 to 160. That's a pretty substantial change. But also improved flak armor damage from 80 to 100%. Someone on Reddit once said, which is like the worst beginning of any statement, right? Someone on Reddit said that flak armor is a useless improvement. Flak armor is the most important type of armor damage to have in the game. It is the most prevalent armor you will fight. Almost everything has flak on it. You need it. It's very crucial. And to have a 20% just flat buff to it, that's huge. That is absolutely huge. So it's nice to see that the Force Sword's getting a little bit of love here, now that it's sitting up against two other competitors for its spot. The Ripper Gun set can opener to only give brittleness on stab and increase stagger capabilities on stab, increase impact and ignore stagger reduction. Can now stagger everything up to crushers reliably. That's pretty sick. Increase damage and armor pen on stabs as well, and reduce reload time and reduce wield time by 30%. So overall, making the Ripper Gun across all of its marks a lot more viable. The Heavy Stubber here has had a reload time and wield time reduction as well by 30%. Do love both of those changes. So for the feat buffs and changes for the Psyker, we have Warp Unleashed, now affects all damage, much needed. Quicken now also increases warp charges generated from all sources to 2. Okay, I like this, yes, I think. So I'm going to read some of the notes that Smog gave me, because Smog is a Psyker king, that's what he does. Quicken change is interesting, but due to warp changes now having staged fall off, I still don't think you'd ever take this. But at least it's not outright bad anymore. So definitely does not really kind of translate very well. Kinetic Overload is now gone, which was a meme choice to begin with, and now Wildfire is there. So if an enemy dies while affected by Soul Blaze that you've applied, up to 4 of their Soul Blaze stacks are spread between nearby enemies. The total amount of Soul Blaze stacks on the new enemy cannot exceed the stacks of the dying enemy. It's kind of a not great feat. It's better than Kinetic Overload, because Kinetic Overload was again a meme, but it's not amazing. So let's read this. This means that when enemies are at max stacks, this feat does nothing, and it doesn't allow you to ever actually increase your maximum DPS. Given that you would typically use this feat with Pergatus, and that you are usually hosing down hordes or elites with it and quickly getting them to max stacks regardless, I'm not sure this feat will really equate to anything meaningful. It may increase your horde clear speed marginally, but by adding those last couple Soul Blaze stacks to enemies on the fringes. So it's really not crazy, but like I said, it's going to be better than Kinetic Overload all the way around. So still does need some buffs, but Psyker as a whole did get some good buffs here. It still needs more, right? It needs better base toughness or toughness regen. So I'd like to see that. We're getting a lot of these tweaks, but I'd like to see some more stability with the Psyker. Sharpshooter here. Now Auxiliary and Takedown now also reduces toughness damage taken by 10% for 6 seconds, stacking up to 3 times. And Covering Fire now also grants a 10% damage buff to the affected ally for 3 seconds. I do not think this is worth taking over the Grenade Aura at higher difficulties. And that's a direct quote from Smog too. And I agree with him. I think this Grenade Aura is just going to be much better for Horde clear, trying to get through and out of things. At lower difficulties for sure. But I look at most stuff through the scope of Detonation because that's what I really play on. Sometimes I'll pepper in a Heresy to warm up, but it's kind of the way I look at that stuff. So Crucian Roulette has been, I guess you could say, fixed, but it's a little bit more straightforward. You probably thought in the past that for every bullet missing, it was a bonus to your crit. It's not. So Weapon Blessing Crucian Roulette is now calculated as it states, giving a stack for each bullet missing. Before, it gave a stack for every 10% of ammo missing. We have to balance this accordingly because some things like the Stub Revolver have a different thing. So 2% per 10% missing, 3.5% per bullet missing. So you can see that this is how that kind of stacks up, with the Stub Revolver getting 5% per bullet missing at max tier 4. Headhunter here getting 0.5% per bullet missing at tier 4 because it has quite a large clip. So you can see how those two kind of fix themselves, or place themselves in that new roulette mechanic. Change All or Nothing Blessing on axes and shovels to give maximum bonus at 0% stamina instead of at 100% stamina. Blessing now is stepped in 5 steps instead of scaling linearly. You can see that. Death Spitter Blessing for infantry autogun, braced autogun, recon lasgun, and twin linked heavy stubber can now stack up to 5 stacks and resets after 1.75 seconds. Death Spitter is the one that increases power, I believe, on close range kill. I can't remember off the top of my head, but you can see that is a nice increase in stack. And I do like that it takes longer for that to reset. Blessing for Combat Shotgun can now stack up to 5 times resets after 2.75 seconds. So even then, dude, Death Spitter seems like it is now the superior choice for, especially for Combi Shotgun and for the rest of these other ones. What did I even call that Combi Shotgun for? It's not a multi-weapon like you have in Warhammer. Peril-based weapon blessings now get 1 stack per 20% peril instead of getting 1 stack total at 30%, 2 stacks total at 50%, and 4 stacks total at 97% peril. So this affects the Warp Nexus and the Force Swords. I'm sorry, the Warp Nexus blessing and the Unstable Power blessing for the Force Staves and Force Swords. So nice change there. Bug fixes: engine merged some GPU hang stability improvements from the experimental branch. Game engine stability improvements, love that. Fixed a bug where the pilot was not visible, don't care. Potential fix for players on, okay. There's that stuff. Let me see, any big ones in here. Fixed issue with Warp Blessing, Warp Flurry, causing issues with short charges on Pergatus and Surge Force staves. Staffs. Fixed issue with Bloodletter Blessing for a Viscer not activating for some attacks. Interesting, okay. The Headhunter autogun would randomly drop to single fire when repeatedly shooting for a short while. Ooh, no fun. Also checked for fixing an issue where the foe ran Mark 5 Ripper gun only checked for critical strikes at the start of an attack instead of intermittently while shooting. This caused a potential exploit where you could crit fish, but in practice meant that the weapon didn't crit as often as it should. Interesting. Updated how weapon attack chains are identified in the Psychanian's basic training. They should now match how attack chains and combos are handled when attacking enemies. Okay. A lot of fixes to a lot of feats here, some standout ones. Bloodletting sometimes wouldn't trigger on Killing Blow. Quietude did not trigger from Battle Meditation. Kinetic Flare could not trigger on Exploding Barrels. Quicken could not restore more cooldown than intended. And Payback Time wouldn't trigger while at full toughness. So nice change there. Various animation improvements and tweaks. Where's the one where it says about... They've added more rare conversations, is what they said. 2 new launcher strings for GPU crash dumps added. Unlockable attacks no longer refund stamina. Moving nets from players now has an interaction animation. Okay. Voiceover updates. Added new conversations that can trigger following a kill streak or headshot, and new, rare, longer bonding conversations between players. So very, very stoked to see what that looks like. Increase the speed of scrolling in the settings menu. Let's see. Oh, the credits were updated. Thank God, finally. Move the healing station after the Ascender event on the Magistrate Oubliette slightly further into the level. Fix a sound bug. Door panel's got a minor delay between interaction to avoid spamming. Do love that because I can't tell you how many times that has actually happened to me. But overall, fixing memory leak that could occur while loading into a mission. Do love a good memory leak fix, man. I cannot tell you how much I love a good memory fix. I'm wondering how the VRAM issue is in the game, but that's been kind of fixed. We still need to kind of restart and reset our VRAM, all that kind of fun stuff. But those are the patch notes here. This is a huge patch. Tools of War, adding in plenty of new UI changes, which are lovely. Some new weapons, which I can't wait to jump into. I'm very excited for everything happening with DARKTIDE, and I'm stoked on it. I cannot wait to see what the future brings. But I think at this point, we are now not only at a point that the game should have been at launch, but we're now a boosted point of that, right? Like we have the base game as I would have expected at launch, and now we've improved upon that. We've added new weapons, which are all great, but the gameplay loop is still the same. We're getting new conditions, which are kind of like a little bit of a skin on an existing map, but we need new skin. We need new we need new skin. We need new maps. We need maybe a new difficulty at this point, because those maps are just the existing maps. With these new weapons, it's just going to be the same level of challenge, with just now applying a different level of condition to it. We need a new difficulty, we need new maps, and we definitely need the start of new classes. That they said that they're going to be doing one a quarter, so hopefully we can start to see that roll out and really start to jump into some more fun, exciting stuff from DARKTIDE. This is all great stuff. I'm not taking a shit on this at all by any stretch of the imagination. I'm just saying that, cool, great. Yes, improve the game, but now add to it. This is a live service game. Let's get that live service going, baby. Turn on my premium cosmetic store so I can buy a Death Core of Krieg. I'll give you guys $300 to do so. I will not do that. Do not do that. Please do not do any of what I just said. But yeah. Let's get this party on the road. I am stoked on it, guys. Let me know how you're feeling about this in the comment section below. As always, though, thank you so much for watching here today, my bros. Make sure you jump on over to Twitch to take a look at the streams of DARKTIDE we'll be doing this week, next week, this weekend. I will be streaming Diablo 4 this weekend. I'm doing a giveaway for the Warhammer, or Total War Warhammer 3 DLC, the Forge the Chaos Dwarf. So make sure you head on over there. You can find the link in the description and the pinned comment below. But as always, thank you so much for watching. Have a good one, and take care. Messed that one up.